Hola mis amigos, ¿qué tal? Are you ready to judge some internet peoples and see whether or not they're assholes? Two notes. First of all, one, I do have my walking pad on a slightly higher speed today, so you'll have to let me know whether it's too loud for you. No one complained about it when it was on a lower setting, so let's see how it is here. And the second note, looking back at my old videos on this channel, I noticed that I seem to be not rushing through them, but I seem to have been taking my time a little bit more in the early days, let's say. And I think I would like to try and just slow it down a little bit again, but with me walking at a higher speed. Let's see how that all works out. So yeah, let's take a look at Ama the Asshole. I picked out a couple again just from the title and the length. So let's see how they are, shall we? Okie dokie. So the first one, am I the asshole for calling my husband's ex a shitty mum? So Opie says, I have a 19-year-old stepdaughter. We're very close and I love her. My SD stepdad? I don't know. My SD is not close to her mum for multiple, stepdaughter, oh my god, stepdaughter is not close to her mum for multiple reasons, mainly because she favours her older brother. Okay, whose older brother? My stepdaughter has posted about it a couple of times on social media, posting pictures of things that her mum buys or does for her brother. Okay, so the mother of the stepdaughter favours her own son over her daughter. So the stepdaughter's posted about it a couple of times on social media, posting pictures of things that her mum has buys or that she does for the stepdaughter's brother and not for her, with a caption saying, when you're not the favourite child. Okay, so she's in her feelings about it. She's 19 years old and she's like, yo, my mum doesn't love me as much as she loves my brother. A few days ago was her mum's birthday and the stepdaughter only sent her a happy birthday via text and nothing more. A few hours later, her mum posted pictures of her birthday party. Oh my god, her birthday party! And an expensive gift that her son had bought for her with a caption, and some people wonder why she's his favourite. Was she even invited to the party or did she just not go? Let's see. My stepdaughter was about to cry and I was fuming, so I posted a few pictures of my own birthday party, which my stepdaughter threw for me and gave me an expensive necklace and wrote, "This is how a kid treats you when you're not a shitty mum" to her. She called me shortly after and called me a bitch for calling her a shitty mum. I was only stating a fact, so am I the asshole? I mean, are you the asshole? I wouldn't necessarily say asshole, but it was definitely unnecessary, especially if you are the parent, whether that's step parent or biological parent. I feel like you set the tone for the level of maturity, right? Because stepdaughter is 19, yeah, she's a teenager, but she's also, coming into her adulthood, young adulthood. And I feel like OP should be setting an example. Obviously, stepdaughter's mother isn't really doing that, and yeah, you may think that she's a shitty mum, but to outwardly say that in such a passive aggressive way, I don't know if that makes you any better. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't necessarily say the asshole, but also I get why the mum is pissed. So yeah, I think y'all are just playing in a playpen and y'all need to grow up a little bit and yeah, stop bickering. Okay, what's the next one? Am I the asshole for cutting a date short when my date gave her Instagram to the bartender while I went out for a smoke? Ooh. So OP's a 27-year-old female and met a 24-year-old female from Tinder for our first date today. In my opinion, the date went really well at first. We had lots in common, sense of humour, life goals. She was also a light smoker and I genuinely felt a connection I haven't felt for a long time. About an hour into the date, I stepped outside for a smoke. On my way out, I chatted a bit with the bartender and he asked how long we've been dating and I said it's our first date. For reference, the bartender didn't speak more than 5 sentences to us when we first sat down, although I saw him look at her more than me. She definitely couldn't have missed that he was checking her out. When I returned, she told me the bartender asked for her Instagram and she gave it to him. I saw her Instagram. There are no photos on her page, but her profile photo was a cute photo of her and she has several hundred followers and followings. It was definitely an active account she uses for messaging. I asked why she gave her contact details to another man while on a date with me, and she says she did it because she feels safer giving it away and to ignore the person rather than to say no. I asked if she thought it was disrespectful to her date to give her real contact information, which is a method for a strange man who knew we were on a date but nonetheless shot his shot to connect with her. And she said she can see how it appears disrespectful, but she did it out of habit and for security and hoped I can see it from her point of view. I told her this was a red flag because she could have easily just said, sorry, I'm on a date and I'm not interested. I felt like the excuse she gave was BS. I have been hit on by male staff while on dates before. The male staff has always backed off when I said I'm not interested and I'm on a date, and the odd times they haven't, ignoring and reporting to management has always worked. Plus, there were at least a few dozen patrons at the restaurant, so what did she have to fear from the bartender? It wasn't like a random man was hitting on us on the street. I told her that I want a woman who can stand up for herself and I can trust to have my back and who respects me enough to not connect with strange men while on a date with me when I'm not looking. I know this is only the first date, but shouldn't the first date be where you put your best foot forward? I don't think I'm too possessive or controlling or insecure. I don't care if she dates other people since we just met, but is it too much to ask to want to feel respected as a person and for my time? Shortly after that, I told her I must get ready for my early shift tomorrow. She sent me a message later saying she hopes I can understand and really did do it because of habit and safety, and to be honest, the whole evening left a sour taste in my mouth. I've not replied yet. Am I the asshole for cutting the date short because I felt disrespected by her actions? Edit, why is everyone lecturing me about the hardships of being a woman when I'm a woman and I'm fully aware of it? I know how we can curve men in ways to maximise safety. I can confidently say the overall atmosphere of the restaurant and the bartender was very relaxed. At no point was the bartender's vibe off or pushy before and after my absence, which is why my BS meter was ringing. So it seems like other people on this thread have kind of picked up on the same thing that I was going to say. So OP here is making a lot of assumptions and not putting words in the other person's mouth, but you can't assume that somebody else feels safe, you know? So when I first read this, I was like, oh, okay, like, is the date just actively flirting with other people? Are they like, you know, being totally disrespectful and just getting people's information so that they can date them? But I would say the fact that the date actively told OP, hey, I gave the bartender my Instagram, this is what happened, I think that's fair enough. I think that explains the situation fine. The date could easily have just not said anything at all, but she actually said, hey, this is what happened while you were outside and this is why I did it. It's not for anybody else to tell a person whether or not they feel safe or whether they should feel safe. Like, it's one thing saying, I feel safe, but you can't tell somebody else that they should feel safe, you know what I mean? So, are you the asshole for cutting the date short? No, because if you don't like that, then fair enough. But do I agree with you? No. Like, it's not that you were rude or something like that. You just were like, this isn't for me. I'm going to go home. I need to get up early tomorrow. I think that's fine. Is it fair to do that? I mean, what's fair? Like, if you don't like it, then fine, you don't like it. You don't have to go out with her again. But yeah, I don't think that you can assume somebody else's feeling of safety. So, yeah, not the asshole, but I do think you're wrong. Am I okay walking on this speed and trying to slow down? I feel like by the nature of walking a little bit quicker, it's making me talk a little bit faster, but whatever, let's see how it goes for the rest of the video. Next one. Am I the asshole for upgrading dinner plans since my husband couldn't make it to his own birthday event? So my husband's birthday was last Saturday. We also had friends who are a couple come in from across the country that Friday. Initially, we were planning to go to a steakhouse for his birthday and as a get-together, so 2 birds, 1 stone. But unfortunately, he unexpectedly had to work, so he couldn't make it. I asked our friends if they mind a last-minute change to a fancy sushi place. All 3 of us love sushi, and my husband prefers steak and doesn't even like raw fish. So anyway, it was definitely fancy. We did omakase, I don't know if that's the right pronunciation. We did omakase with a bunch of a la carte. The total for the 3 of us was over 1k. Damn, that is fancy. We celebrated his birthday the next day at that steakhouse that they were originally going to go to. I didn't tell him about the switch because I didn't want him to feel left out. If you feel like he was going to feel left out, then why did you do it? The cover-up is worse than the crime, right? So later he was asking if we were okay with eating steak twice in a weekend, so I had to tell him that we had sushi. Unfortunately, our friends were really excited to share about our experience, and it was their first time to omakase. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, sorry. He didn't say anything more about this, but in private, he said I essentially celebrated his birthday without him. I asked him what did he want me to do with friends across the country staying with us for just a weekend? Go to McDonald's? So was I an asshole for doing a more fancy and expensive dinner without my husband on the night of his birthday because he couldn't join? Edit, I didn't tell him because he was called into a horrible case and his patient died and he wasn't even on call, shit. But also, I didn't want him to feel left out, despite the fact that it was no one's fault. Felt guilty, enjoying life while he was going through the wrenches. He can't even tell me exactly why he felt upset. He's not mad. So if he's not mad, then why are you asking if you're the asshole? What does it say here? Didn't tell him of the switch, later he was asking, blah blah blah. But in private he essentially said that they celebrated his birthday without him, so it's like he's not pissed, but he's kind of implying that he could be pissed, I guess. Oh, like I say, I feel like the cover-up is worse than the crime. If your friends are over for the weekend, of course, like, don't just be like, well, let's cancel plans and not do anything because one person can't make it. Like, fair enough. Still going to the dinner, and if the person who can't make it doesn't like sushi but everyone else does, that to me seems like a prime opportunity to go to a sushi place. So I think that's perfectly reasonable. But I think, again, if you think it's going to make him feel left out, then why still do it and then hide it? I think it would be different if it was like, oh shit, I need to go into work, I'm not going to be able to make it to dinner tonight. Oh, okay, then maybe we'll go to a sushi place since you don't like sushi anyway. You know, just mention it. But to keep it a secret, it sounds as if you've got something to hide. Saying that you're essentially celebrating his birthday without him, I don't think that's the case here. I mean, like OP said, what should they do? Go to McDonald's? And then if they're still having a good time, enjoying each other's company in a place like McDonald's, is that then celebrating his birthday without him? Or is it the fact that they spent a lot of money? Like, if the person's not there, the person's not there. You've got visitors for a weekend. I think it would be rude to, you know, not entertain your visitors just because one person couldn't make it. So no, I don't think the asshole. This thing with the edit, yeah, I could understand that. Like, maybe at the time, like when the husband said like, oh, I can't make it, and you're like, okay, fine. And then if you didn't decide until later to go for sushi instead, and then once you see him that night, then he starts talking about what happened first, and you're like, oh shit, maybe this isn't the best time to say, by the way, we all went for sushi. I can kind of understand how that can unfold. So nah, I don't think anyone's the asshole here. I think it's just one of these things where someone is feeling like maybe a little bit sensitive, which is understandable because of the kind of day that they had. But nah, I think it's all good. It's fine, don't worry about it. Next one. Am I the asshole for pulling out a roommate search after her dad wanted me to pay him £100, 100 something a month to be a guarantor? I don't understand pulling out a roommate search. Anyway, OP is a 25-year-old female and says, I'm moving across the country and had planned to live with an acquaintance of mine who's a 24-year-old female. From the beginning, I said that I would only be able to help online, but I would help with searching, reaching out and scheduling. Okay, so maybe OP wouldn't be able to physically visit the places, but they can help in the search itself. So we've been searching for a while with her going in to see apartments in person, exactly. Long story short, we get approved for an apartment, but they want her father to sign on as a guarantor because she doesn't have long enough renter's history. He's apprehensive to sign on it because he doesn't know me. I totally understand and say I can talk to him to ease his mind. She then says that he's worried that I'm going to die. What the fuck? They're in their 20s. That sounds like bullshit to me. He's worried that I'm going to die and leave them stuck with the lease, and that he would do it if I paid him $100 a month as a safety measure. She's the one that needs the guarantor. Why is OP all of a sudden having to pay? I said no, I wasn't comfortable doing that, and explained why. She got us on a 3-way call where she started crying because she was so stressed. I said I needed time to think about this, and that upset her because the apartment could go at any minute. She kind of throws me under the bus about the labour she's done searching, and she doesn't want to do it anymore. I got off the phone and called different people for advice. All said, get out now. I sent her a text saying, thank you for all you've done, but I don't think we should search for apartments together. I hope we can be friends and best of luck. Okay, she calls me yelling, saying how I'm screwing her life. I explained that, hey, I felt really backed into a corner this morning and I wasn't okay with that. And she was like, why don't you get this? It's just the way it is. And it got to a point where nothing I was saying was getting through to her. And she said she didn't think we could be friends after this and never to contact her again, which I'm fine with after this. Then her dad follows up later and says this: I'm glad I tested your character before I did something stupid and signed a document that you would have backed out of at the first toothbrush left out. Fuck you. Talk about immature. Talk about hypocrisy. My daughter is right. You're a snowflake piece of shit who couldn't handle a basic business transaction to protect me from people like you. Oh my god, your parents would be disappointed in your behaviour. Good luck. Hope you don't make it. Bully that, you little shit. What the fuck? Dad of a daughter with real character with a smirky face. This whole thing is a bit crazy to me, but am I the asshole? Hell no. Oh my god. Like, talk about setting an example, you know, like we were saying before. That is absolutely ridiculous. Like, I've had my fair share of like apartment searching drama. Okay, I'm not gonna get into that, but that's kind of ridiculous. So OP doesn't need a guarantor, but the friend does need a guarantor. She asks her dad to do it, and dad says, no, what if your roommate dies at the prime age of 25? I don't want to be left with that lease. So get her to pay me 100 X currency per month. Like, what? If anything, like, wouldn't it make more sense to suggest that the friend pay the landlord or the landlady, land person, the owner of the apartment, pay them an extra 100 per whatever as like an upfront, like not a deposit, but do you know what I mean? Like an ongoing advance for a certain period of time until they are confident that they will, you know, continue to make rent on time, and then just sort it out themselves that way. Do you know what I mean? Like, why is the dad now thinking that he's the one who's at this financial risk and blah blah blah, and sending that kind of a message? Damn. Honestly, I think this kind of thing is like a fucking blessing in disguise. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't do that, and I don't think many people would. So yeah, not the asshole at all, but the dad is an asshole for sure. The friend is maybe just feeling a little bit stressed or whatever, but the dad for sure for saying that stuff. Like, I don't know what people, like, if people think that they're going to solve stuff by like yelling at people and being assholes to people. I don't understand. Like, to be fair, or not to be fair, but like, maybe sometimes people are just like so focused on just venting out their own frustrations and just making themselves feel better that they don't even care about making the situation worse. Do you know what I mean? I feel like something that could have been somehow salvaged, or, you know, take away the bad part and just simplify it a little bit. Like, instead they just fucking kick everything out of the sandbox or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Drama. I can't be dealing with it. I mean, I say that, but then I come on these forums like searching for the drama, right? I don't want drama in my own life. I just want to, you know, vicariously entertain myself and you folks out there. Anyway, next one. Am I the asshole for telling my pregnant sister that her husband can't sleep at my house and in turn kicking her out too? I mean, not really. If that's the way they want to go in pairs, that's up to them. But let's read it. So OP is a 30-year-old female and says, my pregnant sister is a 34-year-old female and her husband, who is a 42-year-old male, planned 2 weekend trips to visit me on the West Coast, also as a pit stop to get to and from Hawaii. My sister Jane is pregnant and this trip is their baby moon. I've never heard of that, but fair enough. Jane's husband Charles, Jane's husband is called Charles and my husband is a 31-year-old male called Victor. So the background is, I don't like how Charles speaks to or treats Jane in general. Let's just put that out there first and foremost. Charles often argues and raises his voice at Jane throughout the day about trivial things. I've talked to Jane about his behaviour before and she's told me I realise how he sounds when he talks to people. We fight about it all the time. And also, I think he needs anger management. It always ends with her apologising or making excuses. So we all know that Charles has a bit of a temper. Weekend number 1. The entire time we spent with Charles was quite exhausting and miserable for me. He argued with my sister multiple times. When Victor speaks, I can see Charles rolling his eyes, nudging Jane's elbow and whispering so-called side remarks to her. He seems to think that these all go unnoticed by us. He usually talks down to me, cuts me off and enjoys flaunting his knowledge. My brother, mum and some cousins also find him a difficult person to be around. Charles and Jane leave my house and the next day I'm overwhelmed by the stress and how uncomfortable Charles always makes me feel. Victor finds me crying and thinks they should not come back to sleep in our home because it's so stressful for me, but agrees we should still hang out with them out of our house. I cried about it because I don't want to put my sister in a difficult situation, especially with her being pregnant and trying to enjoy a vacation, but that's not your responsibility. Like, why should you have to suffer, literally suffer and be in tears just so someone else can feel a little bit better, you know what I mean? But anyway, I ended up telling Jane how I feel. Specifically, Charles is rude and disrespectful to you, me and Victor. I still want to spend time with you while you're in town, but I need separate time to decompress after being with Charles. I love you, but this is the boundary I need to set for this dynamic to work. I think that's completely reasonable and a respectful, clear message. She cries and says if she doesn't sleep here, she will need a break from me. I apologise to her and emphasise this is about needing a break from Charles, not Jane, both during a phone call and text. Charles calls me and it goes terribly. He talks over me, tells me he's disappointed because I'm not supporting my sister's pregnancy by not allowing him to sleep at my place, blah blah. Jane is bringing life into this world. What, so you can then do whatever you want? Our feelings aren't what matter, Jane is what matters right now. If we don't sleep there, we won't be seeing you. Well, that's fine. Fuck off then. Weekend 2 starts today. I haven't heard from Jane. Am I the asshole? Too long didn't read. I told my sister I need a break from her husband because he's rude, disrespectful and essentially told them to get their own place when they come visit. I think that's totally fine. I mean, first of all, they're visiting you on the way there and on the way back for 2 weeks each. That's a long time. I'd say, already having an asshole essentially in your home for 2 weeks, being an asshole to you and your family, yeah, I think it's okay to be upset about that and then to say, look, I can't do that again. We can still spend time together, but I can't have him staying in my house because I need time after each visit with you to, as OP said, to decompress and kind of get over that situation. It's their house. I don't think you can make any sort of excuse for being a fucking asshole, saying Jane is bringing life into the world. From what OP says, it sounds like he was an asshole before that anyway. He's just looking for any excuse to continue being that way. It's kind of similar to the last one. I don't think you can shout someone into wanting to live with you, and I equally don't think that you can berate someone into letting you stay at their house. People, it seems like people just don't know how things work. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to be reasonable people. But yeah, not the asshole here. Charles is clearly the asshole. It's a shame for Jane, but what was it she said? What did Jane say? If she doesn't she cries and says if she doesn't sleep here, she will need a break from me. Well, that's your choice. If that's what you decide to do, then fine. But yeah, you can't force someone else to be made to feel bad in their own home while doing somebody else a favour. Do you know what I mean? Just because then you don't like it. You know, it's just silly. So many silly people. Next one. Am I the asshole for demanding to know who was driving when brother-in-law and sister-in-law hit our car in the driveway? So recently we were staying at my mother-in-law's house for the weekend. My brother-in-law, who is my husband's brother, and sister-in-law visited one night and left after we went to bed. Okay, so they're at mother-in-law's, and then the brother and sister-in-law, or the mother-in-law's son and daughter-in-law come and visit at the mother-in-law's house. So they sent a text saying that we were pulling out and we hit your car and we will pay. My car has a pretty bad scrape on the side. The thing is that I know my sister-in-law was drinking, and I get the feeling that she had been driving. When I'm trying to figure out what happened, it's always we. So I keep trying to find ways to ask without straight up saying it, and eventually I say, who was driving? And I get the response, why? Like they are purposefully hiding it. Here's the thing, my sister-in-law don't get along at all. We're as polar opposites as anyone can be. I'm a hard worker, she's a self-professed layabout. My brother-in-law makes all the money in their house and she spends it all while doing absolutely nothing. And she has money coming in from her parents as well. The reason I want to know is because I think it's important that if she was driving, it should be her personal money that pays for it, not my brother-in-law's. I don't think she's ever had to face the consequences of her own actions before. I also know that she was drinking, and I think that if this was a drunk driving incident, we should know. She could really harm someone with that behaviour. My husband and I got into a fight about it now because he says, why does it matter? He doesn't understand why I think it's important. Even when I said we should make an official report and go through insurance, he said he doesn't want her to get in trouble, not them, so he knows the truth too. Now we're fighting about it. Am I the asshole? Ugh. Are you the asshole, OP? How old are these people? It doesn't say. I think, to be honest, this is a bit of a case of OP essentially trying to parent her sister-in-law. Do you know what I mean? Like, assuming everybody's old enough to be married, it means they're adults, right? Assuming, like, depends what fucking country you live in, right? But let's assume that everybody's an adult. Like, sure, if you don't agree with somebody's lifestyle, if you don't like the fact that your sister-in-law is what you call a self-professed layabout, so she even herself says, I do fuck all, I just use my husband's money. If you don't agree with that, fine, you don't agree with it. But it's not really your place to be like, you should use your personal money to pay for this. Like, I'm kind of with husband here, like, what difference does it make to you? If it's going to get paid for, it's going to get paid for. Like, I don't think it's OP's place to try and discipline another adult that she's not responsible for. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would be different if she was like, if the sister-in-law was somehow under her care, but it seems like she's not. She just doesn't agree with the way that she lives. OP just doesn't agree with the way that sister-in-law lives her life and wants her to be like penalised for something, right? Now, I always think it's dodgy when people don't want to go through insurance. I think that's usually because they have a habit of like getting into accidents. That's obviously a big assumption, but just, you know, from experience and, you know, things that I've witnessed, it seems to be a bit of a pattern. You know, people don't want their premiums to go up because they're always getting in accidents and they'd rather just pay it off the books. Don't get me wrong, like, sure, if sister-in-law was drunk and she was driving, that's an issue. But that's a separate issue that, hey, she shouldn't be doing that in general, not just I'm unhappy that she did that and then hit my car. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you think that she has a habit of driving drunk, that's something that you should discuss as its own thing, not just say, I'm annoyed that she crashed into my car while she was drunk. I want her to pay for it. Like, it's not any of your business how they as a couple handle their finances. So, are you being the asshole? Like, I wouldn't say asshole, but I think you're stepping out of your place here. I don't think it's for you to say that shit, like, or to expect to be able to be, do you know what I mean? To be in the position to tell somebody, like, how they should pay you back. As long as you're getting your money back, it's not really got anything to do with you in that respect. Do you know what I mean? And as well, they told you proactively, hey, we hit your car. Sorry, we will pay for it. You know, so just not the asshole, but drop it. And if you're concerned about sister-in-law's drinking and driving, do that as a separate thing. Okay? Okay. Next one. Do you know, I feel like so much of the time I say not the asshole. Am I too nice to people? Are people actually the asshole and I just don't want to say it? Let me know in the comments if you think I'm too nice to people. But yeah. Anyway, am I the asshole for telling my husband that he needs to spend more time with our sons and not his nephew? So OP, I'm a 45-year-old female, and my husband, who's a 46-year-old male, have two sons. The older one is 21 and in college and works a part-time job on the side. The younger one is 16 and still in high school. My husband's brother has two sons as well, who are 24 and 28. The older one is very nice and polite, but the younger one, let's call him Simon, had always been problematic since I can remember. He's a very picky eater, refuses to even bother engaging in a conversation unless he's interested in it, and would always be the one getting fussy if we go somewhere on a family gathering. He hardly ever addresses me, and whenever he used to come over, whether by himself or with his brother, he barely managed to greet me. If I ask him personal questions, he shuts me down easily. However, he and my husband seem to have a good friendship and even talk on the phone once or twice a week. So it seems like they're very close. My husband's brother works two jobs and wasn't always a very present father. So Simon, the nephew, had attached himself to my husband even as a kid because of availability and common interests. When he was around 5, Simon even used to say he wants to marry my husband. Okay, kids say the dumbest shit, right? The dumbest shit, the darndest shit, what's that phrase? Kids say dumb shit. Anyway, we all saw it as a joke and moved past it, but I found the attachment odd since then. He and my husband both like guns, hunting, video games, and the same types of music. Even cars too, which is my husband's main hobby these days. A few months ago, Simon wanted to go on a hunting trip with his father, but got refused. Don't know how that works. So my husband offered to take him instead. Okay, so Simon wanted to go on a hunting trip with his father. His father said no, so OP's husband said, I'll take you, I'll go hunting with you. So I told him he should take our two sons too, and Simon's brother, so it would be like a family bonding experience. Okay, so OP is saying, why don't you take the 4 boys together, so it's like a nice experience for the whole family-ish, rather than just the 2 of you. He agreed, but apparently it didn't go well. My older son and Simon's brother, so the 2 oldest boys, didn't like it, and my younger son was on his phone the whole time and complained since the hunting grounds are further away and require a lot of walking. My husband told me this and said he wouldn't force anyone else to come if they didn't want to. Fair enough. But ever since then, he and Simon spend a lot of time together. They go hiking every other Sunday in the morning, and Simon often comes over to help my husband with the cars he's fixing up or play games while I'm at work. Simon only briefly greets me while oftentimes not even bothering to greet his cousins. My younger son told me he asked my husband for something, but he told him he'll do it later and then forgot about it. It upset me because I feel like he's neglecting our sons while having no issues spending time with his nephew and always talking to him on the phone. Simon seems more like a son to him than our actual sons are, and it really bothers me. He claims I'm overreacting and it's not a big deal, and that he tried to spend time with their sons, but they don't seem all that interested in doing what he likes doing. I told him they're his sons and he should show more interest, but he claims I'm being too pushy and overbearing. Every time I bring it up with him, he gets annoyed. Am I the asshole? think this thing of suggesting that the 5 of them go together, I think that was a nice suggestion. However, all 3 of the boys didn't like the camping or hunting experience, so they don't want to go and do that anymore, which is fine. And husband says, look, I'm not going to force him to do something you don't want to do. Fine. I think it's very natural if 2 people have similar interests and they get along well for them to be close and to talk a lot about the interests, partake in their hobbies together. There are 2 things I'm thinking here. One, if his own sons and the older nephew don't like to go hunting, what do they like to do? Like, hunting can't be the only thing you can think of to do together. There must be something else that you can also do. Even like going for dinner together. Do you know what I mean? Just spending some quality time together. There doesn't need to be some lavish activity involved. That's one thing. And then 2, is it that the husband's own kids are actually feeling neglected? Is it that the husband isn't really actually spending very much time with them at all and they feel left out? Or is the husband actually spending a good amount of time with his kids? His kids are quite happy, but he just spends even more time with his nephew. Do you know what I mean? I think it's kind of like a balanced context thing, you know. If the boys, if husband sons are quite happy with their relationship with their dad, then fine, everyone's happy, there's no issue. But if they're feeling left out and they've maybe expressed to the mum, like, oh, how come he's hanging out with Simon again? You know, like, how come he never wants to do anything with us? Then I think that would be different. So it's hard for me to say here. I mean, I think not the asshole to say, hey, why don't you spend more time with our kids? Why don't you involve them a little bit more? But if you're like pushing it all the time, if you're like getting in about everyone's business and no one else has said that they have a problem with the current situation, then back off, you know. But I don't think it necessarily makes you an asshole. I don't think it's unreasonable to say, hey, wouldn't it be nice if you spent more time with your own kids than somebody else's? But at the same time, like, 3 of them are adults. Like, it's only OP's youngest son that's 16. The others are 21, 24 and 28. So they're grown-ass people, like, yeah, not the asshole, but it does depend a bit on context and how much you're really pushing it out to. There's just one more that I picked. I see that this episode is going on a little bit longer than normal, which is fine because, as I say, I didn't want to rush through them. But let's just do this one more that I picked out. They've already been deemed not the asshole, but for some reason I clicked on this. Am I the asshole for giving my late husband's estate to a stranger instead of our kids? So OP is a 55-year-old female and had been married to their husband, who is a 60-year-old male, for 20 years before he died. It was cancer. She says, he had 2 kids from a past marriage who were in their early teens when he married me. I had a 7-year-old from an earlier relationship as well, so they have 3 kids not with each other and didn't have any kids together. I tried to treat my stepchildren as my own, but they never accepted me. They were very rude and insulted me whenever they could. Since I did not work, they called me a gold digger who married their dad only for his money. The truth was my grandparents were quite wealthy and left me a lot of money when they died. I lived well below my means and chose to stay home and raise my daughter since I could afford that. I did not need his money at all, but I didn't bother sharing this with the kids and told him not to either. Fair enough, it's none of their business. I did not want them to like me just because they might gain monetarily from me. Okay, so you're also sort of protecting your future interests in that regard. My husband, on the other hand, hated how they behaved with me. Their blatant disrespect made him not pay for their college tuition. Their mum couldn't pay for it and they had to take loans for it. They didn't even talk to him. Even when he got cancer, they refused to come and see him. For 3 years, we struggled with the treatment. My daughter came to visit from time to time when she could. During this time, the only person who really helped both of us was someone we were not related to at all. This girl in their late 20s waitressed at a cafe that we frequented. She was a single mum, taking classes at community college at night, working during the day and raising her 2 kids. She took a liking to us, and when she learned that my husband was sick, spent whatever time she could visiting him. She stayed nights at the hospital when I needed a break and basically had been the daughter that we had wished for. When he died, she helped me arrange the funeral. His kids came on the day and all they wanted to know was about their inheritance. I felt sick. I don't blame you, that's pretty fucking awful. When I learned my husband had left his estate to me, whatever is left after setting his bills, which were around 25 grand, I decided to give it to the girl who helped us both so much. She tried to refuse, but I insisted she take it. She needed it, and in my opinion deserved it more than the ungrateful children. My daughter understands why I did not give it to his children, but is upset I did not give anything to her either. I told her she already had money and a job, not to mention she will get my inheritance. This was in no way her money. But his ex-wife and kids are causing havoc over this and really upset with me. They're calling me an asshole for giving away money they deserve. Am I the asshole? No. I think the title was a bit misleading there because the woman that they gave it to wasn't a stranger, they just weren't a relative, but it seems as if she was really there for them. Both OP and the husband, both when the husband was sick and after he passed away. I mean, at the end of the day, the husband gave all of their money to OP. So it's now at this point OP's money to do whatever they want with it. I don't think that the ex-wife or the husband's kids or OP's kids should be feeling any sort of entitlement to that money. If you've watched this channel before, you know how I feel about entitled people, okay? And people just thinking that they have a right to money or goods or whatever. Like, that's not the way it works. Like, if OP's husband wanted to give the money to anyone except from OP would have either done that or, you know, legally, formally, or would have expressed something or, you know, given away some money before he actually died or something like that. Do you know what I mean? But he chose to give it all to OP. At that point, sure, it's inheritance, but it is no longer husband's money that you have any claim to. You know, it's not as if he passed away without a will, which means that legally, depending on what country you live in, relatives can sort of file a claim to some of that money. No. The husband clearly had something in place which meant that OP got all the money, and then it's her money. It's like any other money that she's got. So, no, I don't think that you're the asshole. I think it's really weird for people to be like, hey, that person died and I want their money. Like, I would never do that. Like, I mean, it just feels so insensitive and so self-absorbed to be like, hey, now that that person's died, I expected that I would get some of their money. What's up with that? Like, that's really not what would be on my mind. So I really struggle with things like this just to like understand it. Like, on a factual level, I know where it's coming from, but like on a human moral level, I just don't know how people can think that that's like appropriate. I don't know. Let me know what you all think in the comments. Was my walking pad too loud for you? I hope not. I do hope that you enjoyed this episode. I think, as I've been doing lately, I think I'll go on one of the other subreddits and record another episode after this one. I do have other videos out that you can take a look at. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye.